what were the Oblivion Remastered perk changes and how are they going to affect your game? That's what this video is going to be about. So of course, with Oblivion Remastered, we have seen a significant rebalance to the perk system. Nobody's really talking about it, and nobody really seems to understand that it was even implemented. I couldn't even find a video going over it for me to watch, so I put my time together going over all the different perk changes. I've tried to use all of them as much as I can, and I'm going to try to explain them in the best way possible. The first skill we're going to talk about that has become extremely more powerful is Mercantile. The first change is just how you get experience towards Mercantile. Instead of just being a flat rate of experience per item sold, if you sell items for more gold, the amount of experience you get is increased, meaning that selling more powerful items to vendors will now generate substantially more experience. Leveling up Mercantile has also been made substantially more powerful. At the apprentice rank, you get all the old effects, but also merchants may also offer better items. Of course, the value of items offered by merchants is based on your level. As you continue to level up, they will sell more powerful and more valuable and higher tier items. But in addition to that, at the apprentice rank, they can sell even above that level, meaning you can find higher tier items than you could get dropped in the wild on merchants. At the journeyman rank, merchants can offer even better items. Now, I have personally played this myself, and if you do get to apprentice, you will be able to buy the best items generally on merchants. At the journeyman rank, if you do get to 50, you can definitely find the highest tier items on merchants. This means you can play above your leveling curve by buying at merchants, so long as you level up and get Mercantile. At the expert rank, all merchants have more gold available. Now that used to be at the master rank, but all merchants will now get 500 more gold at only the expert rank, allowing you to get that much earlier. At the master rank, in addition to the buying and selling items at the best price possible, which was the old master effect, you now also get merchants offer the best items they have. While previously most people considered Mercantile to be forgettable, now Mercantile is well worth trying to experience up or even picking as a primary skill. It is very powerful now. Alchemy has seen substantial increases to the amount of effects it has to level it up. All old effects have been kept, so just keep that as a note, otherwise listing them all will take too long. Apprentice now has a 25% chance to craft an additional potion. Journeyman now allows you to handle 6 different potion effects. 4 is the base amount. At Expert, you now have a 100% chance to craft an additional potion. And at Master, you can now handle 10 different potion effects at the same time. This is actually kind of crazily powerful, and I'd be very interested to see how people do an alchemy run. Security got a buff to the amount of tumblers you can maintain after failing a lockpick, but I'm going to be real, I'm not going to talk about it, it doesn't matter, we all know why, let's move on. Speechcraft was changed a good bit. I'm not sure how much this impacts, but the apprentice trait became the journeyman trait became the apprentice trait, the master trait came down to expert, and then it got a new, much more powerful master trait. If you are one of the few people who wants to go Speechcraft, it's now way more powerful, but not worth that much time in the video to talk about. Before we talk about combat skills, whose perks have seen basically an across-the-board rework, we need to talk real quick about agility. Agility now affects daggers, short swords, and bows. Daggers and short swords have been removed from strength and added to agility. This allows you to do bows with a melee weapon. That's just important to note before we go forward. Now, combat, especially melee, is significantly more fun, and melee is way more powerful, particularly into the late game. However, the developers did nerf Sneak, which I think was 100% the right call. Sneak was very overpowered in Oblivion, it was very overpowered in Skyrim, and I know some people, the gaming community, can get very upset over nerfs, but I just want to specify this was the correct call. Now, those of you who like using daggers, you can rejoice. For you, the sneak attack with daggers was actually substantially buffed. The formula used to be 4 times damage with all one-handed weapons and unarmed, and 2 times damage for Marksman. It is now 5 times damage for daggers and 2 times damage for one-handed and unarmed, and also Marksman. At the apprentice level, the sneak attack modifier went from 6 times for all one-handed and unarmed to 8 times, but only for daggers, whereas one-handed and bare hands only do the 3 times damage that Marksman also gets. At the Journeyman level, the wording is a little bit different, I think, but it should still be that boots no longer affect your ability to sneak based on their weight. At the Expert level, instead of running no longer affecting your ability to sneak, you are now harder to detect in bright environments. That should overall make sneak a little bit less silly and a little bit less required on basically every melee build, which then opens up the door for the developers to make melee significantly more interesting and powerful. Now, as we start talking about these combat perks, I do need to mention two overall things. All power attacks are now unlocked by default. You can do every power attack in the game just by default. Those special power attack modifiers that you saw in the old perk trees were practically worthless, only having a 5% chance to proc. It was very rare that they would, and losing them is really not even much of a change. For Blade, at the 25 level Apprentice, your power attack gets the same 20% damage boost it used to, but it also now loses durability 20% slower. At the Journeyman rank, all your power attacks automatically give opponents 15% weakness to physical damage, which is quite a lot. At the Expert level, all your regular attacks have a 20% chance to make opponents bleed. And lastly, at the Master level, that automatic weakness to physical damage you apply is now increased to 30% weakness to physical damage. This means that power attacking an enemy with a blade weapon, then hitting them with a bunch of normal attacks will cause a lot of damage. Blades will now scale significantly better and deal a lot more damage. Blunt got the same treatment as Blade, but it gives slightly different effects. At the Journeyman level, instead of decreasing your opponent's physical resistance, you are now getting a shield for 15. That gives you 15 armor. At the Expert level, instead of having a chance to bleed, you have a 20% chance to silence your enemies on each hit. At the Master level, all your power attacks now grant you a 30 shield. That is 30 armor, which is a lot. I've used Mace extremely well, and into the high levels, you can become practically an unkillable god of combat. I don't really even have any other way to describe it. Handhand has received the largest rework of any of the combat skills. At the Novice level, your attacks will reduce your opponent's fatigue by 50% of the damage you deal. At the Apprentice level, you get that same 20% damage boost to your power attacks, and anyone you block will be hit stunned, setting you up to just lay into them and beat the crap out of them afterwards. At the Journeyman level, your power attacks have a 20% chance to disarm opponents. Remember, in the old system, that was a mere 5% chance. And at the Journeyman level, you can now hit anyone immune to physical damage. At the Expert level, the fatigue damage has been increased to 75% the amount of damage you deal. At the Master level, you now reduce your enemy's fatigue equal to 100% of the damage that you deal. This means hand-to-hand scales significantly better in every way and can constantly either disarm or knock opponents' fatigue to zero. It scales way better, way stronger. It is probably the most viable thing that they've done. Before we talk about the block changes, which might seem like a nerf on paper, I should mention a system change is that you can no longer be staggered or hit stunned, or this allows you to block an opponent's attack and then instantly swing back into them, which is significantly more powerful. As for the changes to block itself, the Journeyman bonus has been moved to the Apprentice bonus, which is that you no longer lose durability when blocking. The old Apprentice bonus was moved to Journeyman, but instead of reducing the fatigue lost from blocking by 100%, you now only reduce it by 25%. At the Expert level, the fatigue loss from blocking has been increased to 50%, and you can now perform a shield bash, which will automatically stagger an opponent. At the Master level, the fatigue loss from blocking is increased to 75%. You only lose 25% of the original fatigue. Additionally, your shield bash now does 150% more damage for 250% total. This makes blocking, with all the changes in mind, significantly more powerful and overall a way more effective playstyle. Marksman obviously had a bit of an issue scaling into the late game. Stealth Archer was pretty much the only viable way to play a Marksman, and the developers have done nothing but buff Marksman. Number 1, all arrows now have a 100% chance to be in enemies after killing them, instead of having a 50% chance to break. Several arrows have had their damage increased so that it scales a little bit better. In addition, much like the melee perks, the chance to proc the debuff on Marksman, Expert, and Master has been increased substantially. Instead of having a 5% chance to knockdown and a 5% chance to paralyze, at Expert you now have a 10% chance to paralyze for 5 seconds. This increases at the Master level, you have a 25% chance to paralyze for 5 seconds. This should make Marksman, without Sneak and without playing Stealth Archer, significantly more viable, and should allow you at higher difficulties to actually continue to use bows if you aren't one-shotting your enemies. A quality of life change made to armor that I appreciate a lot is the old Apprentice and Journeyman bonuses have been swapped. At Apprentice, you can now repair magic items, which is very, very helpful, and the Journeyman level is now repair hammers last twice as long. Since sprinting has been added into the game, the athletics perks have all changed. The novice trait, that's what everybody gets, is you regenerate your fatigue at only 25% while running. The old master bonus has been moved to the apprentice bonus, which means your fatigue now regenerates normally at apprentice instead of at master. The new journeyman bonus is sprinting consumes 30% less fatigue. The expert bonus is sprinting consumes 60% less fatigue, and the master bonus is sprinting no longer consumes any fatigue. Acrobatics has likewise just gotten stronger across the board. The new apprentice trait is you can do a dodge, which I will show you later. It's significantly stronger than the old dodge. The new journeyman perk is you consume 50% less fatigue when jumping. The new expert perk is the old master's perk where you can jump over the surface of water. The new master's perk is you consume 75% less fatigue when jumping and take 50% less fall damage. To show you the new dodge now, you can use it in any direction, and it's very responsive, very quick, and just overall significantly more powerful. If you enjoyed this and you enjoyed me compiling all this late at night, please make sure to like and subscribe. I would appreciate that a lot. Additionally, leave a comment down below on any of your thoughts on this. I would appreciate that a lot because I don't know everything. And as always, make sure to have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.